Hello dear friends. I received a 27-inch monitor for repair. The problem: the device stopped turning on. The owner thought the defect was related to the power supply. He sent it to a repair shop, but they couldn't help. They said there was a problem with the motherboard and returned the monitor. So the owner decided to send it to me, so to speak, for its final journey. He said that if they couldn't fix it, he could keep it for spare parts. Well, I'll do my best to bring it back to life. So let's start the repair by checking the defect. The case has already been opened, but everything inside is connected, and the power supply can be connected. Let's look at the monitor and its power consumption. It's less than 1 watt. I press the power button, but there's no response. This is how the defect manifests itself. Now you can remove the lid. It is held in place by fragile latches. The side latches break immediately, but this can be dealt with somehow. The main thing now is to restore the monitor's functionality. Let's check the power supply. I checked the voltage at the network cable connector. It's 214 volts. Good. Next, I checked the voltage on the storage capacitors of the high voltage part of the power supply. 293 volts, which is normal. Next, I checked the voltage on the PWM controller chip, 15.59 volts, also within normal limits. It looks like everything is fine with the high voltage part of the power supply. I checked the output. The voltage on the 12-volt line is 10.19 volts. This is normal, considering that this line mainly powers voltage converters. There is no voltage on the EN pin. This pin turns on the backlight. Voltage appears on it after the monitor starts. There is also voltage for the backlight driver. It's around 21 volts. Apparently the power supply is indeed working. Well, let's check the main board. I unscrew the screws and remove the metal shield, behind which is the board we are interested in. Next, I unscrew 4 more screws and remove the board. This is what it looks like. I place it on the foam pad so I can apply voltage and test the power supply system. I check the functionality of the power converters. To do this, I measure the voltage on the chokes. They should show typical values, for example, 5 volts, like on this choke, 1.8 volts or 3.3 volts. This is what powers the memory chips. There's also a voltage of just under 1 volt. This is a somewhat atypical value, but could be normal if a specific processor is being powered. But it's also possible that this is a dropped voltage on the 1.8 volt line, for example, due to a faulty converter. To determine whether this voltage is normal, we need to examine the converter controller. We'll do that a little later. For now, let's check whether the signal from the power button is reaching the board. I found the corresponding pin on the cable that connects the board with the control joystick on the 3.3 volt power button. When pressed, the voltage drops to 2.4 volts. You might notice that the voltage doesn't reset to 0, but this is likely normal, since in this case, different commands can be sent via the same contact. Specifically, the power on command corresponds to a voltage of 2.4 volts. This suggests that the board is receiving a power on signal. Now let's return to the power converter, where the voltage seemed low to me. The converter is controlled by a JW5255 driver. I found the specifications for this driver online. It shows a typical connection diagram, with an output voltage range from 0.6 volts to the input voltage. The voltage of 954 milliwatts is within this range, meaning the converter is likely working properly. Typical output voltage values are presented in the table. The voltage value is determined by the ratio of resistances R4 and R3, connected to the FB contact of the driver chip. I desoldered these resistors and measured the resistance. The results were 5.56 kiloohm and 3.26 kiloohm, respectively. The ratio is 1.7. A ratio of 1.5 corresponds roughly to an output voltage of 1 volt. Decreasing the ratio increases the output voltage, and increasing it decreases it. This suggests that the voltage converter is working properly. The problem lies elsewhere. Since the voltages are fine, I'm left with just a couple of possible culprits. It could be the flash memory or the processor. Let's start with the simple, the memory. To check the flash memory and the firmware itself, you need to desolder the memory chip and read its contents with a programmer. I found a memory chip labeled BL24C256A. I desoldered it and read the information from it with a programmer. I'm using an RT809F. The firmware was read, and I saved a backup, meaning the memory chip is working properly. To check the firmware itself, I'll simply erase it from the chip. If the monitor's behavior changes after replacing the chip, the problem could clearly be firmware related. In my case, nothing changed, so I flashed the firmware backup back to the chip. It would be easier if there were known working firmware versions available online, but I couldn't find any. I found another memory chip on the board and repeated the same procedure with it, which also didn't yield a positive result. So the only possible culprit left is the processor. We need to at least find out what model it is. I tried removing the ceramic heatsink, but it was firmly glued with sealant. I even tried warming it up a little with a hairdryer. That didn't help. However, I did get an unexpected result. The monitor started turning on, and the power indicator lit up. And an image appeared on the screen too. Obviously this happened after the processor warmed up. Well, great. Now we know for sure what's wrong with this monitor. It's the processor. All that remains is to find out its model and replace it. I continue the heatsink removal procedure. Heating isn't particularly effective. Brute force is required, but applied in the right direction to avoid completely ruining the board. I'll demonstrate the most effective way to remove these types of heatsinks. I clamp the heatsink in a vise and twist the board. It couldn't be easier. Take note, the board remains functional after this. An image is displayed on the screen. Let's check how hot the processor is. I measure the temperature with a thermal imager. Immediately after powering on, the reading jumps to 60 degrees Celsius. This is despite the fact that no signal is transmitted to the monitor. When the computer goes into standby mode, the temperature begins to drop. The remaining sealant is easily removed from the case. The processor model is MediaTek MT9820. I couldn't find any similar models for sale on marketplaces. Perhaps it's a newer model. For this reason, I suggested the monitor owner simply resolder the processor and install a higher quality heatsink. This should help for a while. Then, perhaps, a new processor will be found, and it can be replaced. I solder using a bottom heater, which I use as a separator for separating the display modules. The table temperature is 150 degrees Celsius. The board will lie directly on its surface. I will solder using FX Plus flux. It is designed for BGA soldering. I apply it to the gap between the processor and the board, so that the substance gets under the processor itself and wets the solder balls. Next, I turn on the soldering heat gun at 380 degrees Celsius and maximum airflow. I heat the processor to the melting temperature of the solder. I gently push the chip housing. If it moves slightly after the push, and then returns, the solder balls underneath have melted, and the process can be completed. While the board cools, I select a new heatsink. I will use this one. It is made of aluminum and will work much better than the ceramic bummer that was here from the factory. I wash off the remaining flux and check the results. The monitor turns on, so I can install the heatsink and assemble the case. I install the heatsink using thermal paste. As usual, I use GD900. I spread the thermal paste evenly over the processor case. Then I press it firmly and secure it with T7000 glue. If I were doing this for myself, I would have left it like this. But since the monitor will be shipped by mail, I decided to additionally secure the heatsink with epoxy glue. This will make it more secure. It would have been even better to secure it with screws, but I didn't have a heatsink of the right size. I need a slightly larger one than this. After installing the heatsink, I test the monitor with an HDMI signal. The heatsink heats up to no more than 40 degrees Celsius. This is a good result. I can continue with the assembly. When installing the motherboard, I decided to ditch the metal shield, which turns the space around the motherboard into a sealed box. Air circulation will be much better without it. Well, there's basically no way for any interference to occur, since the matrix is on this side of the board. After assembly, I tested the monitor for a week. I didn't find any additional defects during this time, and that completed the repair. I'll soon send the device back to the subscriber, and let's hope the defect doesn't recur until a new processor is found. By the way, I still have the firmware for this monitor after the repair. They're known to be working, since I erased the chips and wrote a backup to them. I've left the links in the description. Well, dear friends, that's all for today. Thank you all for your attention, and see you at other repairs. Until then.